Hello, hello. Thank you, everybody who showed up tonight. I am having a great weekend. I hope you guys are too. And I just always love like coming in and seeing all the people in chat. So that was super fun. And I thought tonight I would share with you really what I think might be the optimal beginner sort of project to do. And it's also adventure themed, but let me get my desk here. And here we go. I actually been playing around a little bit with a version of this with my head really small and my head kind of small. I kind of like my head kind of small a little bit better. Anyway, so this is a sheet load of cards from a couple years ago. And the reason I like this one is I didn't use the whatever oval here at all. And but you can basically make it just out of white cardstock, and then the only other thing you really need are 3 pieces of 12 by 12. And for the whole adventure thing, when my favorite store in the world, other than Michael's, Hobby Lobby, had a sale, I picked up this really cool what's this called? The Uncharted paper crafting kit. These Paper Studio ones that are like $7 normally will go on sale for like buy one get one 50% off. So like I'm super duper a fan of that. And I'm also super duper a fan of sheet loads just because they're really good for beginners in my opinion. The cutting's a little weird, but once you can get past the cutting, and for this one I basically modified it rather than doing the ovals, I just did 2 by 2 squares and I rounded the corners. And the other thing I like about these sheet loads is almost always the sediments, whoops, are their own separate piece. So this is really nice if you're a beginner stamper because you just need basically one color of ink, and like you can screw up as many of these as you want. Um, I actually started with a different shape, and I just didn't like how it worked, so I recut these. So really nice. Totally can just make it out of plain cardstock, which is always a thing I like. Like anytime I can sort of leverage my plain cardstock, I'm a fan of that. Hello, Stamper Girl. How are you? I hope you are having a nice weekend as well. And oh, Annie is here. Hello, Annie, as well. I'm actually really liking this 6 o'clock my time slot quite a bit. So it's always a nice sort of end to the weekend. But let me just show you the pieces here. I did pre-cut these. I figured watching me cut a bunch of squares and rectangles would be fairly boring. There are 9 of each piece, basically. And the one thing about this paper that I really like is it's distressed along the edge. But the thing that I'm curious about is since in the middle it's not, like if these cards are going to look a little strange when we put them together, I felt that it was kind of like not in your face enough where it would matter. And this paper was actually from a different pack, but these are fun cards to put together because you just basically mix and match the three different card or pattern papers together. So yeah, let me just sort of show you how one of these comes together, and then I figured we could just chit chat while I was putting some of these together. And if you guys are anyone here is like a new card maker and wants like a mini kit, feel free to reach out. Like sometimes some of these would be like super easy to put together into just sort of a fun little kit. So basically, the big piece just sort of mats on the card base, so that sort of serves as your background. And I really should like screenshot these so I can just like put them on the screen. Anyway, I always have ideas of what I should do before the stream when I'm in it. I feel like oddly no one tells you that showing up to your own streams is hard because not because you forget when they are, but like because you think of seven ideas you want to start and then you start four of them. And then you're like, oh my, I should be going live soon. Hi T, how are you? And Donna's here. Hello, Dawn. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I am happy to have you all here. Happy end of the weekend, unless you are working a non-traditional shift, which honestly I really miss doing. Like I never had a 410 shift, but the when I had shifts that overlapped the weekend, it was nice because you always had a day during the week to like catch up and do sort of adulting things. Anyway, the next piece goes like that, and then we just can't put this in the original sketch. This is sort of halfway in between, but then a little off the border, if that makes sense. Like you want sort of this border to be pretty consistent, and then you just put a sentiment on it, and that's pretty much how they're going to look. I'm not sure about the white. We will see about the white. We could always edge that a little bit, which wouldn't be super beginner friendly, but you could have used a different color of cardstock. But I thought that, like, I kind of like the idea of setting this off a little bit. So we will see if my idea is good or not. And let me see. Oh, how can you cut really thin stuff, Stanford Girl? I'm curious. What is my favorite paper? I'll say that's complicated. So let's talk about white cardstock. My favorite paper that's easy to find is the Nina Classic Crest, which comes in the 80 pound is really nice for card bases. These are some super value card bases I got from Michaels, and they are very thin, and I would like it if they were slightly thicker. Um, so I really like the Nina Classic Crest. Slightly harder to find is the Hammer Mill copy cover is a good paper for pretty much everything. That is to say, both coloring and for making cards out of. It's pretty thick too, so it's good for the card bases. Um, and then I've been really most of my coloring that I've done recently. I've really been enjoying using the Express It blending paper, which sounds fancy and has. I mean, it's not insanely expensive, but it's probably it might be more money than I would choose to spend. Especially, let me tape this down, and I will grab. I actually have been keeping a coloring notebook because I've been trying to improve my coloring over the time. So this actually kind of helps. So I tend to keep swatches and stuff. So I swatch out all of my markers. These are tri blends, basically to understand how close the colors are. Like some are good, like these are great, these are great. But then you run into things like these blues are like nowhere near the same. And it looks like there's not a third blue, and that's not because there isn't a third blue. It's because the third blue is basically just blending solution. And then I have many other markers. But the thing that I thought was cool that I did a while ago is I had the. Let me just pull this out because it's probably easier to see than having a big notebook on my desk for the next few minutes. So I took the four papers I like. Uh, well, I should say the two papers I like, I believe, and then I also tested the blending card, which was new to me, and then this is Astro Bright, which is it's also made by Nina, but it's a 65-pound cardstock. So this is the hammer mill. It's good for everything. Like you can see here, or maybe not. Let me bring this up closer. My somewhat amateur coloring aside, like the hammer mill, you get pretty good blending on, and the Nina 100, you get pretty good blending on for just regular things. I think this is the Express It, which came out a little bit better, but like I'm always torn because I'm like I could just use Nina for everything and it would be fine. So those are my paper opinions. I would say most of my friends are very much a fans of the hammer mill. I am too, but you have to wait until it goes on sale because it's been kind of spendy lately. Hi, Sagar. How are you? And of course, Cordelia, welcome in. Um, so that's what I usually use for my white card stock, which I honestly tend to be pickier about because I use it for more stuff. And especially if I'm coloring on it, I like a paper that doesn't fall apart. But I tend to just use the Michaels Reflections, or I'm spacing on what the Hobby Lobby version of this is, but just their standard 67-pound paper. They make it in every color you can conceivably think of. So those are the ones I tend to go to. Pattern paper, I like a lot of things. You may have gathered that if you've watched my channel for more than 3 seconds, but I would say generally double-sided is nicer because if something isn't working, you can just flip the paper over and go from there. Oh, and the other nice thing about this design is because you're putting all the pieces together, if you read the text upside down, you can have a couple extra chances to catch it. Not that we always do, but and not that I don't know that anyone would notice terribly. On this piece, this has some very subtle words, but they're also like not particularly directional. So on this like travel one, it's less of an issue. But this map has some pretty obvious text on it, so it would go more like this. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I like double-sided pattern paper a lot. Some of what you'll find is more like cardstock than paper, which is to say, it's just it'll add more weight to your card. So depending on what you're doing exactly, you may or may not care about that. So for example, the paper we were playing with yesterday in Lynn's live was not too shabby, which is thicker than that Michaels cardstock I was just showing you. So it's almost maybe an 80-pound cardstock, and it's double-sided. I've also been using, if I can find it, a almost gone, but don't worry, you'll see more of it soon. Where are you, Pad? Or maybe I can't find it. If not, I can grab a similar thing, but here it is. So the Spellbinders cardstock is a lot like what we're working with here, where it's single-sided and very much like paper. So I guess I'd say both are good. Just realize that um, the more cardstocky it is, the heavier it's going to be. I'm actually kind of liking these together. I wasn't sure if this would be too busy, but maybe I won't put that where my head is. But anyway, this is kind of a neat color palette. Anyway, I always find with these sheet loads, it's sort of like always a surprise because even if they're colors that look like they go together, like I don't know, I never quite know how I feel until I see the final thing assembled. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any particular favorite cardstocks to use? Just reading comments here quick. Yes. That is the tricky bit, right? So the trick is saving. Oh, hello Scott, how are you? Welcome in. Yeah, the trick is if you're I'm bad at this, so let's just start with that. But if you are a good shopper, you're going to notice that there are deals every so often. And especially the ones that I tend to see with paper companies are very much like buy one get one 50% off. So if it's somebody you like, or I should say a brand that you like, let's see, how do we this to go? I think the globe being a little more up makes sense. Um, if it's a brand you like, waiting until they have a sale is a good idea. Although, I don't know, I sometimes get sort of stuck into the whole like, if there's a holiday you need it for, sometimes I don't do that. I don't know. It's tricky because there's a lot of good sales, but there's also, I guess I'll say, sort of the J.C. Penney of sales, where it's like it's a sale, but it's not like really a sale, meaning that it's less than like whatever the MSRP is, but like you never see the MSRP. So this is basically what these guys look like. Wow. Let me figure out where my camera is. There we go. A little bit of a lag. But I kind of like this. It definitely is the adventure vibe to me. Um, what we could do is you could also. I'm gonna see how these thanks looked if we add a little bit of ink to one. It's pretty stark. I don't know. It's probably fine because everything else is white. I don't know. There are different ways you could approach it. I don't know. Is this like a I know that they rebranded, so I don't know if this is just me being a person of a certain age or what, but like when I was a child or slightly older than a child, like JC Penney's would send out these circulars all the time and they'd all have coupons and all the little old ladies and other people, because I shouldn't say just the little old ladies, but I always would notice the little old ladies would collect all the coupons and then there'd be like I don't know, it'd be like I before we gamified things, I think we kind of gamified that essentially, where it was like, people would always try and get the best deal, and they would really be into finding that best deal. I actually really like this paper. I should see. Sometimes these papers are available like outside of the kits, and if you don't want to buy a kit, um, pretty much, I think both Michaels and Hobby Lobby sell their 12 by 12 pattern papers like this for, if they're not on sale, 69 cents each. So, like, you can really get into one of these things where you make a good bunch of cards. And, I tend to like to make them all look semi the same because I have a lot of people who like sets of things, but really, it all depends what you like. Yeah, I feel like Belk is a southern chain. I haven't seen them in the Midwest, but they may exist. And yeah, I don't know. I've been liking my scan and cut after Design Space. I think the scan and cut software seems, I'll be kind and say, convoluted a bit. Um, but the functionality is the same. Like if you kind of understand how to use, I mean, if you understand that functionally, like the machine doesn't know where you are, and it doesn't matter what color anything is, and basically you're just telling it where to cut stuff. I think any of them will work. I've been liking the scan and cuts just because I've had bad luck trying to um, die cut stamps out. Like I feel like it's always because of the way that the dies are fabricated, where like the side you're looking at is kind of the thicker side of the die, and this can happen to you sometimes with this thinner paper. And you can just sort of smooth out that corner. Once it's glued down, no one's gonna know. So I mean, I wish that I tossed a lot of cards when I was starting out that I feel like, I should have just kept going because really you can just embellish it if it doesn't look good. Or it's Halloween, which is great because like, anything that looks wonky is kind of like perfectly appropriate at Halloween just because it's that time of the year. Ooh, chicken on the grill? That sounds really good. I actually was with my folks this afternoon doing like a Sunday lunch thing. So my dad grilled steak and that was really good. And I don't know. I enjoy this time of summer when it's not ridiculously hot, at least in the Midwest. And I don't know if that's just a this year thing. I don't know. I feel like when I used to visit the Midwest as a kid, like it felt much hotter than it does now. But, who really knows? I feel like one's childhood recollections are also somewhat clouded by the fact that, like, at the time, central air wasn't really a thing. So, like it was cool in movie theaters, but like in your house, it wasn't. And here we go. I think even though like this distressing isn't equal on all sides, I actually think it works out pretty well. I am a fan. I'm becoming a fan of the Paper Studio. I didn't really look at it before because until Hobby Lobby moved a while ago, it really wasn't like Michael's was way more convenient to get to. So I mostly just used the Michael's brands, and I don't know. Michael's has nice stuff too. It's some very fancy pattern paper, and here we go. And as you can see, like background is the same. These two just have the other two pieces flipped, but it's not super evident that these are the same papers unless you saw a bunch of these together. So that's kind of the cool thing about using these sheet loads. And just a word on stamps, because I think I brought this up last time, but if you are new to stamping, you are going to get a ton of mileage. This is a Gina K one, but out of just a generic set that has like thanks, birthdays, those kind of sentiments, because you're going to use those all the time. Um, we obviously kind of kicked off our live streaming here looking at Christmas stuff, but like really, if it's not Christmas, you're probably not going to use your Christmas sentiments a ton. Let me see. Oh, do you know anything about Nothing Bundt Cakes? I didn't know they were a chain. There's one that's like across the street from me here. And I tried them at a holiday fair somewhere. Um, you've probably heard this story before, but my mother and I, a lot of the things we do with our makes is to sell them at a charity craft fair thing that is in the beginning of December here. But anyway, I think Nothing Bundt Cake was there, and it was either there or at another craft fair where what they were. Well, maybe not craft fair isn't quite fair. It was sort of like a maker's market thing. But anyway, they were very good. I like the mini ones, but I feel like I would always think the mini bunt cake was like a single serving for me. I don't know if there's a secret to like not eating the entire thing. Oh yeah, I thought they were fab too. I was surprised. Like they have really good frosting. Well, not really frosting because it's more of like a poured icing, but you know what I mean. Like often I kind of feel like I don't know things are I kind of wind up feeling that like often desserts are just sweeter than I would like them to be, if that makes sense. But I thought Nothing But Cakes did a really nice job. But oddly, even though they're like literally 5 minutes away, I don't know that I've ever been into their store. I've seen them a couple times, but I think it was at events as opposed to locally. But I was a big fan. I mean, I'm a big dessert fan anyway, so I mean, like I am always up for taste treats. Although, like, I don't know if it's just an around here thing, but there've been a lot of like local chocolate makers too, and that's very much my jam. Which is kind of funny because obviously, like the actual chocolate isn't local, but Hey, hello, Jamie. How are you? Hope you are doing well. And I grabbed the wrong comment. There we go. Let me just catch up on comments here. Oh, yeah, I've heard. Who was it? I think Ken Hess was like a super fan of the crumble cookie. I forget. Like, I don't remember what brand it was, but for a while, like, I think QVC was doing some sort of very, very similar. I mean, not maybe not similar. I think that they weren't as impressive as like the crumble cookies, but they were a similar sort of like, you know, over the top cookie thing, and those were really good. So I don't know. I feel like crumble cookies are like also one of those things that like would not last very long in my house. I'm really liking this map theme. When I got the paper, I was a little like I don't know if like maps on maps was like something I thought would like actually look good, but I don't know. I am enjoying it, and I just find I don't know like the part of my personality that like diamond painting loves sheet loads because it's like you're not using quite as much of your like logical brain to sort of think about what you're doing once you sort of get what the design is because then it's just sort of it's a really good thing to do with chatting, I think, just because um, you can pay attention to the subject at hand a little bit better. I actually really like the gradient on this. I like the gradient on all of these. I'm a bit of a sucker for a pretty gradient. Oh yes, I see. I'm very pro cookie as well. I just tend to eat them when they're around. So there's kind of that. Oh, I want to hear more about this recipe. That sounds good. I don't think I ever had a coach who made me cookies. I feel kind of left out. And like they're out of business now, but there was like a very fancy donut shop in town. And it was I don't know if the interesting thing was like when they opened, people were like super into it for I don't know, a couple years. And this was I don't know, probably I don't know if it was 20. I'm trying to remember. It was a time when everybody was still in the office. So, I mean, maybe 2018, 2019, that kind of era. But I mean, they were like super popular. But after a while, it's sort of like, and they would sort of do donuts that were heavily frosted, I would say. Like, you have like the Cookie Monster donut that is like a donut, but then it's like has like 4 layers of frosting on it. What is this Mexican spaghetti? I have never heard of that. Please explain, Belle or Annie or anybody who knows what this recipe is. It sounds really good. I am all about pasta, so that's an interesting sounding thing. Like, is it just spaghetti and then you use sort of like Mexican flavoring on the sauce essentially? Let's see. See, now T, we need to have a little chat because like there's a thing in Wisconsin that one of my Texas friends thinks is completely insane, which is like pasta served over like buttered noodles, essentially, like elbow macaroni, or sorry, not pasta, but chili served over elbow macaroni, which it's sort of like chili mac without the mac. I don't know. I actually think it's really good, but I've heard that that's actually more of a regional thing, but not regional to here. So I don't know. But apparently, in the land where chili came from, the idea of like putting it on top of buttered noodles seems insane. But I feel like there's a lot of food trends that are kind of like that. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So you use basically like taco seasoning and then make a red sauce that's more using that flavor palette. Okay, that sounds pretty good. I feel like I should actually try that because I don't know. I've ever since whenever all the grocery prices went up, I kind of realized that you can like make your own pasta sauce that isn't like $10 a jar, which is kind of a nice alternative to have. As we know, I won't quite call it laziness, but like after working all day, the odds of me like making food from scratch are often low. But it's kind of interesting because I love cooking on weekends. It's just sort of like after 8 hours of being not home, sometimes it's just nice to be home. And I'm trying to like orient this non-directional paper, which it's a weekend when you're just trying to do something that makes no sense at all. But let us get this together. And what Oh, I've heard of tomato pies. I don't know that I've actually had one, but I don't know. The concept for them sounds pretty neat. And the idea that like sort of, the tomatoes would get sort of caramelized on top and be really tasty. Definitely worth trying. We haven't had many tomatoes here yet, which is kind of interesting. Usually this is sort of peak tomato season. We've had like some cherry tomatoes, but which is pretty much all my dad grows. But like even at the farmers markets, I really haven't seen a whole ton of other stuff. And I'm really digging this paper. Batteries Plus. Oh, we have those. Oh yeah. I don't know how you feel about it, but like I've seen that at like Dollar Tree very frequently. Although in like the smaller can, obviously, but I don't know. Like Hunt's, I think actually is pretty good. Plus, I don't know. Like if I'm gonna like doctor it up, I don't really mind what kind of pasta sauce I start with. Like I feel like if you're gonna spice it yourself, um, I don't know. It's not too crazy. And even for using like crushed tomatoes in soup or something, it's like if you're making things more or less yourself, I feel like there's just a lot of you have a lot of flexibility, and especially if something's on sale. So I am also a fan of the on sale things. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot that you have to watch gluten or choose to watch gluten just because, like, you know, it's weird. I always tease people or companies that are like, "Here's the gluten-free beef jerky," but, like, while some of it is nonsense, I feel like for anyone who has to actually pay attention to the stuff, like packaged foods would be kind of a nightmare. In restaurants, for that matter, it's like, how do you know? Oh, and the cat says hi. Oh, this is from the Paper Studio, which is Hobby Lobby store brand. It is out of their something something adventure. I'm kidding. It's not called adventure, but it should be Uncharted paper crafting kit. So it comes with 10 sheets of paper, and then it comes with a couple other, like most of their things, it comes with these cool puffy stickers. It comes with another sheet of like sentiments and a bunch of letters. So I mean, the kits are very much designed for scrapbooking, which of course I don't do it with it, but they work pretty great. Yeah. No, I think both of those things would be hard, Jamie, like, for the same reason, right? Like, it's very hard to deal with any kind of processed food. And I mean, I don't know. I I tend to eat, like, even if I'm cooking, I'll tend to use ingredients. So, like, not all the ingredients are always like 100% from scratch. So, I mean, I think I would find it challenging. Although I guess it's like anything else. It's like if you don't really have a choice, you just kind of sort of deal with it. And whoop, and it is straight. This is. I really like this Caribbean blue. Let's see. I think it's mostly grain. I'm sure Jamie can tell us one way or the other, Cordelia. I mean, it's grain, but like also it's a thing that like any processed food people put into stuff. I mean, I don't know what gluten actually does from like a food science perspective. At least not without googling it. I feel like I should know, but there's a lot of stuff like that as an adult. Where you're like, I should probably understand how this works. And sometimes I do, and sometimes not so much. Sure. The funny story behind the thanks sentiment is my mom was like, "I don't have any thank you cards, and you never make thank you cards. Could you make me some thank you cards?" So today we're making thank you cards as a result. Um, as a side note, also thanks to my mom, I'm getting some new gear for the channel, so that will be very fun because I am looking forward to making these streams a bit better technically than they are today. But I don't know. It's sort of a learning process. But I'm still surprised how good um, like the cameras on phones are these days, like compared to sort of back in the day. I feel like I need like a stream assistant to like read the comments and stuff. But wheat, bakery, barley, and rye. So you're saying, Delise, that the gluten-free whey protein is just a marketing tactic by people. Well, I mean, maybe you could put gluten in it, but yeah. Or what was the other one I saw? Like I was actually at like my local grocery store and they had labeled like a steak gluten free, and I was kind of like, I think that's the way that is. It's sort of like fat free broccoli, and you're kind of like, yeah, I think that's just the way it comes. I don't think it's that is special, but who knows? And while I'm like very much a wet adhesive person for most things, like I just love dry adhesives for these particular projects because the cards are like done instantly. And I don't know. I always mean to just like save a couple of these and then have them around for, that time that I need a card for something that I could just bang it out quick, but I don't know. I have never quite mastered getting that done. So, this is also something that happens, which is that um I think these are actually from the same pattern paper. I must have lost one of the blue ones, but that's okay. Even if you wind up using all the same pattern paper, I mean, it still looks pretty decent. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes it doesn't look like if you're going to photograph the set together, it doesn't look as great. But I also kind of feel like you're not necessarily always going to do that, and most of the time, I'm just going to use these as cards. Let me just catch up on the chat quick. Wow, that's really serious. Okay, I didn't realize that gluten was that big of a deal. I've heard of it more in people who are like express sort of GI discomfort as opposed to, like it's a major medical issue. So sorry to hear that. That would be pretty rough. Yeah, see that was sort of my understanding too, was like, like anything that tends to go into commercial products, it's sort of like, well, you wind up having to be, fairly careful. And my cat is saying hello, and he is very interested in. My cat is a big fan of Kendra's card challenge apparently because he wanted to like paw at it. But anyway, hello Kaiser. Yes, I know you are there. I think he's actually made appearances in streams before too because sometimes he just gets a little bit jumpy. Well, not like jumpy afraid, like jumpy. He wants to see what I'm doing. And this is a good example of how you can like mess these up and not realize what you're doing. So if that happens, it's really not the end of the world. We have more paper, so what we will do is just cut another piece. But I will probably want to measure what size these things actually are before we do that. So if that happens to you, if you like using these mats that I like, you can just measure directly. If not, obviously a ruler works. So we know that we're cutting a 3 by 3, and I will. And here is. I think this should work. These are actually scraps left over, although you could use any scrap here, and you can even use just colored cardstock. But let me just cut one quick. This is actually scrap from these other pieces, but it should work just fine. And we may have enough. And this actually gave us two spares. I'll use that one because we kind of wound up not using the blue as much as I wanted to. But, it happens. Cellulose or wood chips. Interesting, T. Oh, yeah. I don't know, like, my dad is very into the pre-grated cheese. I've never been a huge fan, but, I mean, other than the convenience angle, obviously, because like, it's just there and you can use it. Um, I think it's mostly because he likes to use it on salad, so that wouldn't be necessarily a time where you'd want to grate it yourself. And even though we basically doubled up this pattern, which it wasn't the initial intent, because the pattern's so variegated, like, I think it still adds a good bit of visual interest. How many cards do I make a day? Um, 0 or more? How's that for a bad answer? So I'll farm that out to other people. I would say I do 1 or 2 if I'm doing unique projects, but if I'm doing a series that is sort of done, I don't know. I guess the more I have to think about it, the fewer I do, if that makes sense. I don't know, Dawn or T or Delise, do you do something similar? Often, like, if I'm doing a project, like, so, like, I'm doing another round of these at some point soon that's more adventure themed. Like something like this, I would cut everything and then just do the cards one at a time. Yeah, but really, the only time I make a bunch of cards is like if I'm using something like the sheet load, where that was sort of the intent. Although I've also had days where, especially if it's like rainy and there's nothing to do, that you sort of start one project and then just kind of keep going. So I've had that happen too. Now, this is an example of a piece that, like, you kind of have to be more careful about the writing because, like, if it was upside down, I think you'd definitely notice it. But I mean, again, I don't know if we have Meg, the Queen of Mixed Media, with us this evening, but similar to one of the Halloween cards I did recently, it's sort of, I don't know, it's pretty easy to just mix media or like paint or collage or something over something, and then it'll get be pretty good. I'm curious. I make 3 to 4 a day. That is very cool. I feel like that's a good number. I mean, especially intermixed, depending on what you're doing. Like sometimes I'll just like to watch other people stream and craft, and then I feel like once you kind of get in. I mean, I think it's like anything else. Once you're kind of in the zone, you're just sort of in the zone doing your thing. And here we are. I've said this a bunch, but I like this whole idea of sort of almost airmail stickers. And here we go with this one. Let's see what other people said. Yes, I agree. Alyssa is awesome. I agree, T. I mean, I bought two of the three collections, but the collection I didn't buy, I would buy that one too, just because I am really a big fan of Halloween. Which is funny because I don't actually. I think we talked. This has been brought up on several streams recently, but like depending on your own personal feelings about Halloween, you may or may not like Halloween a lot. Um, so I feel like I love the Halloween projects just because like I don't know, it's a time if you want a departure from like cute, it's a very good time to have a departure from cute. Um, So right, since we're talking about not too shabby papers, like so this which one is a good semi departure from cute. Um, these faux glitter things are just the bomb. But anyway, but I mean, there's also, is it here? Here it is. I also picked up this one, which is just very cute. It's very watercolory too, which I kind of like. Anyway, and there's a whole like if you want to see more of the collection over on Jamie's channel, there's a whole like breakdown for it. See, I'm excited for the fall release too. I think I saw it, like I think you did remember a sneak peek at one point, but I don't remember what was in it anymore. But I just feel like fall is a fun season. And I was telling my mom, I don't know if I've shared this with you guys. Often I'll bring all my finished cards over to my mom's because she knows that I make cards and like sending cards to people. And, it's sort of that age where you usually have friends who would benefit from a card. I guess we're all kind of that age because it's kind of universal, but I feel like, once you get to a certain point, you don't get as much fun mail anymore. But yes, I am very curious about the fall. And so I don't know, like here I think of leaves and apple picking and what other fall things? I mean, Halloween, I guess. Thanksgiving, and now I think like I'm trying to remember somebody I knew decorated for a harvest, which was kind of like Thanksgiving, only after Thanksgiving, I think. Anyway, there there are a lot of really fun things that happen in the fall. Apple picking being my favorite. Well, that's not fair. Thanksgiving is nice. It's nice. It's nice getting together with folks. And even though my Thanksgiving often tends to be not on actual Thanksgiving, which was great for years when I had to be on call, but I still really like getting together with the family, or I should say the extended family, because a bunch of folks live in town. Spiked cider drinking. Do you have any secret recipes? My other cat seems very interested in your spiked cider idea, Elise. I am. I've definitely had sort of like, I don't know, like hot cider cocktail things before, and those were all pretty cool. Um, I don't know, it's just a good time for warm drinks generally. I feel like I drink a ton of tea in the fall. Like where I'm like 98% of the time I'm like definitely a coffee person, like a coffee all day kind of coffee person. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think between Thanksgiving and Halloween, I feel like the fall just has like all the best holidays. And I like Christmas, but as somebody who celebrated things during close to Christmas as a kid, I had actually several folks I knew who wound up with December birthdays where it was sort of like, you know, always tough for the families 'cause it was like, well, we want to do Christmas, but we don't want to like leave anybody out. But anyway, so this is a good example of where I miss either miscut or did something. And you can just trim these up pretty easily with scissors, and then no one has to know you screwed it up. That is the fun part about card making. And even if it's not perfect, I don't know. It was an interesting topic of discussion with some of my mom's friends, where some people really like cards that look very professional, and other people are more like, "Hey, I would just rather, I don't know, I'd rather have cards that are just more homemade and feel more like somebody actually made them as opposed to it coming out of a factory." Wow, we have made a lot of cards tonight. I don't know how that happened. I always sit down with these sheet loads and I'm like, "Oh, I'll do 2 and then we'll be good." And then I don't know. And now we're down to kind of our last one. But yeah. Oh, gingerbread men. So my aunt has my maternal grandmother's gingerbread recipe that's really good. I'm a big fan of gingerbread, but I like it to be I like the ginger to be sort of front and center. Hello, Linda. Welcome. I hope you're having a lovely Sunday. Hopefully, all is well. You're technically not late because I'm still going, and I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm just actually really liking this time slot because it's just fun to sort of unwind, make some cards, catch up with some folks. Um, you know, it is a very nice cure to not having a case of the schmondays. You know, 'cause I think sometimes this time of the week you're like just running through your list of things to do where we can just hang out and craft. If anyone ever wants to collab or anything, just let me know because it's StreamYard and folks can sort of jump on whenever. And yeah, these some of these are hard because like the map is kind of non-directional in terms of how the text goes. But I'm not uh, super picky, and I'm just really happy that like these sort of distressed pieces just sort of blend in, and it's not. I was curious if it was going to look weird, but it seems to not be. So that is I don't know. To plagiarize Sagar, who was here earlier, often I don't know if my projects will work out because I don't tend to actually like pre-test them. Like I'll often pre-cut stuff, but I don't like do the whole project end to end. So I don't know. Sort of like craft roulette. This is sort of a time where we're not actually inherently teaching anything, but I will give you my thoughts. So there's that. I'm actually thinking for next week to do sort of a brief foray into die cutting because this is the time of the year that if you're new, you're going to see all the craft companies rolling out all their sort of back half of the year holiday stuff. I just saw who was it? Creative Muse, I think, doing a breakdown of like Spellbinders Better Press, which I know you use a lot, Linda. Like just their holiday release, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh my god, like like I would need to work a lot of overtime to afford their Better Press holiday release. But anywho, oh, carrot cake. That is actually my dad's favorite cake. I mean, it's technically healthy, right? I mean, it has a vegetable in it. But yeah, interestingly, both of my parents are not really frosting people. I could kind of go either way. Like I like sweet stuff, but I like it to taste. I like it when there's a flavor other than sweet involved. Whoa! And sometimes your paper just sort of jumps for no reason. And usually, what I do, like once I have these taped, I just sort of fit them and see what direction I like it. There's not really a science to this, other than have fun. 'Cause I always try to. And I have thank you notes now, so that is cool. So now let's see the whole set that we did. And the thing to me that's interesting is even though these sheet loads you wind up basically with the same card. Like even though these are the same cards, sometimes they look kind of different. So I don't know. This was a really fun project to do with you guys. Trying to think. I may do a weird pop up live sort of Wednesday, Thursday ish once I get my new gear to do a little bit of testing and sort of figuring out how all that works together. And hopefully that won't be massively annoying. But I may do some crafting. But if it's mostly a tech stream, I'll like make sure it's listed that way so I don't waste any y'all's time with it. Um, I think that's most of what's happening. There is a couple hops coming up on Instagram, and I don't know that I have anything else going on until I see you guys live, other than the usual 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific crafty fun with friends. I think we are probably doing a stream there because I don't know, it's funny. Like I was chatting with some folks a while back, and it was like there's going to be this big summer break. So yeah, that didn't happen. But anyway, it was great seeing all you guys. And I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. Anything comes up, well, I guess I should say, any questions or anything, feel free to leave them in the description or in the comment box once this turns into a replay, or feel free to reach out to me anywhere you see me. Um, and I think that is pretty much it. This is going to be, I don't know, this is going to be a busy week at work actually, because like everybody's on vacation doing like the last hurrah before, you know, things start with school and whatnot. But anyway, it was great chatting with you guys, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the weekend if you have something left. Talk to you later and have a good night.